Hello and welcome to the Boro Breakdown Podcast. A tricky week sees Boro add 4 points to their tally, but can Rob Edwards find the fix to Boro's lingering attacking problems? Tom and Matt join me for this one, and we will kick things off with Wednesday night's game against Sheff Wednesday. Morgan Whittaker's second goal in as many games gave Boro 3 points at Hillsborough, where there were more Middlesbrough fans in the away end than Sheffield Wednesday fans in the home end. Reporter Alan Briggs said that the official attendance was 7,081, and by that reckoning, with Boro selling 3,699 tickets, the away support did in fact outweigh the home. It would mean that Sheffield Wednesday had 3,381 supporters in the stadium. Matt, you were one of the 3,699 Boro fans at Hillsborough. What did you make of the game?
Yeah, firstly, it was unique. I don't think there'll be many away atmospheres like that we'll attend for a very long time. It was odd going to the ground. It was odd being around the ground. There was just not a Sheff Wed fan in sight. It was really, really strange, and the atmosphere was strange as well. It was hard to fully understand the atmosphere, I guess, when you're in the away end because it seems louder anyway. But watching it on TV and watching it back, it was very strange. It was almost like a pre-season game at times, and I don't want to say that's the complete excuse for Boro's kind of flat performance on Wednesday, but I certainly think it probably did contribute a little bit towards it because it was just incredibly strange. As for the game itself, yeah, it wasn't fantastic. I think Boro had moments in the game where we looked good. We had maybe a spell early in the second half where we did apply a little bit of pressure, but yeah, it was a very patchy game. That was the words I think Edwards used afterwards. Again, spot on with his wording. And I thought when we got the first goal, that was the perfect start. I thought that the best thing we can do is get an opening goal early on, because the longer the game drifts, the anxiety amongst Boro fans could build, because the narrative was there, wasn't it, for us to somehow find a way of losing that game. Lumley in goal, all the other things that were sort of the variables around it. And I thought an early goal puts all that to bed. And what a chance for us to fill our boots, get the attacking players a couple of goals, build that goal difference, and put a side away and really sort of lay down a marker a little bit. It just never happened. We were sat in second gear after that. I don't want to say we were taking them for granted, but I thought we kind of just dropped to their level a little bit, and we allowed the game to drift. And I think even though, yeah, we had some big moments, big chances we should have done better with. I know Lumley made one or two decent saves, but a lot of them I think were Boro just not being great at finishing. We left the door open for them to get back into the game, and it did lead to a frustrating second half. I was getting quite frustrated in the away end that we were just leaving them the opportunity to, all it would have took is one moment, one mistake, and we would have dropped points in that game, which would have been criminal, really, given everything that was happening and the position they were in. So grateful that we got out of there with the 3 points, because that's the most important thing. But I wouldn't say I was by any means convinced by Boro. And yeah, better team might have took something off us on the night. So yeah, I just would have liked us, and I was willing us to just put the game away and be a bit more ruthless up front. And yeah, the performance was okay. So yeah, coming out of that, I was ready to just draw a line under it, and I was sort of like, right, okay, it was a difficult game, it was a unique atmosphere. If we can build on that and improve going into Wrexham, that performance will be forgotten about. But following yesterday's game, the Sheffield Wednesday performance is now also still lingering in the back of my mind because of how we followed it up against Wrexham. So yeah, a win's a win, but I would have liked a bit more from Boro on the night.
Yeah, I could tell you weren't happy with Boro at moments during that game, Matt. Watching your matchday vlog, you turned heel in that one. You turned into Bully Maguire in the away end, being a bit frustrated. But yeah, Tom, were you disappointed by Boro's performance in this one?
Yeah, I was. And I mean, now you said that, I'm going to have to go and watch Matt's blog after this. But
Please
yeah,
do.
I was quite disappointed. Coming away from the Riverside on the previous Friday, having beaten Ipswich, was very, very good feeling after the international break. And it was like, okay, we've tried something new in terms of formation. We've come out with a good win. We had chances to get more. Carry on playing like that going forward. Be quite happy. Then I think, as Matt said, everything was written. on Wednesday night that something would go wrong with the fact that they were allowed to sign Joe Lumley on an emergency loan. I can't remember if we spoke about it on the pod last week or off it. I think it was in our group chat, but we were talking about Joe Lumley potentially having a worldie, and I was like, no, he's done that once before when Senny Dieng got sent off at the Riverside, and then he got subbed in. So he's got previous for it. And then, to score in the first 5 minutes, great finish by Whittaker, and you could see his confidence was growing at that point. And it was like, right, that kind of removes some element of like a curse with Lumley. He's already conceded. Maybe he's not going to have a worldie. Maybe we can, press on and get something else from this. And then from that point, I didn't think we played that well. And I don't know, like, this is just kind of me speculating on it, but I felt like there were times in that game where some of our players were thinking this should be much easier than it actually is. I think we were a little bit too laid back in our decision making. Maybe weren't taking it as seriously as we could have been. And, second half, I think they had the opportunities, or half opportunities at least, to punish us for that. And it's just not what you want to see. I think we spoke about it afterwards in our group chat where, it was like, what was the kind of like maybe a feeling that because Coventry had gone there and absolutely battered them, that we should do the same. I was like, no, not. I mean, from my point of view, no, but we should have done better than we did and came away with more goals than we did. We've got the quality in the team, but I don't know, something just kind of didn't feel right to me about that performance.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of it at all, I'm not going to lie. It was very flat. The overriding positive was, of course, we won. And at the end of the day, when you look back at Boro's win column, that's another win to add to that column. But the game as a whole was so dystopian. It felt like a match that took place at the back end of the COVID era where fans were allowed in, but it was a reduced crowd. And obviously, fully understanding of the situation, why Sheffield Wednesday fans were boycotting that game. And thankfully for them, they've got what they wanted. Chansiri is no longer in charge of their football club. And although that altered how I viewed the game, because I thought it was, as I said, flat, given just the lack of atmosphere from the home crowd, I do think that maybe helped us to a degree. I don't know if this is a complete bogus point, but there was a moment in the second half where Barry Bannon had an opportunity. It was either a cross or a shot. And when you've watched so many football matches that you can almost preempt what the crowd is, how the crowd's going to react. I kind of thought if there was more of a crowd at Hillsborough right now, it would be right about now that you'd hear a sudden raise in volume where the home crowd are getting up for it and urging the team on, because it came at a point where Sheffield Wednesday were building a little bit of hope, but the backing track of that hope was near silence. And I think maybe that eased a bit of pressure off Boro at a time where there should have been pressure on Boro. Yeah, I wasn't a fan of our display. I thought that there was a very clear way of attacking Sheffield Wednesday, and it was on the sides. It was trying to break that high line, which Bergzorg was trying to do, and he did that in the build-up to the first goal. And we just didn't really... I think one of you said it there. We were just stuck in first gear. We never really got out of it. And I do... For me, I wasn't massively nervous being 1-0 up, and then the performance definitely hit a lull. I do think we were dragged down to their level. I wasn't massively nervous that we would squander the lead. I know, Matt, you were probably feeling a little bit different in the away end, but the only thing that would have unnerved me was Boro themselves and that little tickle of typical Boro lingering at the back of my mind. But I'm more trusting of this team, and I think it's because I just think we're good at defending. Rob Edwards' substitutions were really strange, I'm not going to lie. Going at one point for a decent amount of time as an EPAN with the most forward player because we didn't have a recognised striker. We'd taken Tommy Conway off for Ian Morris. It was just really odd. And I do think that our substitutions were quite telling. They were very defensive. I'm not quite sure if I liked that or not, but at the end of the day, we got the win. It wasn't a great performance, but we won. And that's all that matters at the end of the day. Tom, Joe Lumley did completely wipe out Tommy Conway in the box, and controversially, referee Thomas Kirk didn't give a penalty. He didn't do anything, actually. It was almost as if his batteries had fallen out. Rob Edwards said in his Friday press conference that PGMOL admitted that Boro should have been awarded a penalty kick. What did you make of that call at the time?
Yeah, I was quite shocked that it wasn't given as well. I say I was shocked. I was shocked at first, and then I saw who got tackled, and then I was like, right, yeah, it's happened again.
Yeah.
You watch the replay back. The ref's got a good view of it. The ball continues going in the direction that Conway was taking it, so it was clear that Lumley didn't get a touch on it. And it's just like, what are these refs thinking? And it's going to show the level of officiating in this league and how poor it is, or how inconsistent it is. I will say, because I did think the referee yesterday was good, but then Conway's had one against Stoke, clear penalty, not given. This one, clear penalty, not given. I did think it was quite funny yesterday because there was a couple against Wrexham, including one right on the edge of the box where Conway went down and the referee just blew for a free kick straight away. And it's like, is this referee good, or have they all just been told, like, look, he's not actually diving, like, you can give fouls for him? But yeah, it was just it was a weird one. There was nothing blocking the referee's line of sight there. There was nothing indicating that Lumley got the ball. So I don't really know what that referee was thinking there. And yeah, maybe it's just another thing that pops out that shows something's got to change in terms of the refereeing standards in this league.
Yeah, it was a disgraceful decision. Absolutely disgraceful decision. In fairness, Edwards said afterwards, we can accept that now because no real harm was done in a way. People are human beings and can make mistakes, but that one I just felt was a relatively clear one. It was absolutely clear. I mean, I was thinking the exact same thing. Because the ball continues in the direction that Tommy Conway is facing, is heading into, that indicates that Tommy Conway gets a touch on the ball. If Lumley got a touch on the ball, it'd probably arced around Tommy Conway and gone out for a throw-in. So that tells you that Joe Lumley does not get a touch on the ball. Tommy Conway does. And Joe Lumley was asked about that incident after the game and said no comment, rather diplomatically. But it was very obviously a penalty. They've obviously admitted that afterwards. It was ridiculous. And you know what? We're talking about how poor Boro's performance was, but that could have potentially put Boro 2-0 up. Could we have potentially viewed that game differently had we received a penalty kick? Obviously, it's one thing receiving a penalty kick, but it's another thing actually converting it. But had we actually scored that penalty, would maybe Boro have not dipped into a bit of a lull because they'd have had that 2-goal advantage? They might have gone on to get more. I'm not saying that they definitively would have, but it is quite interesting to just kind of, I don't know, ponder on how the game would have gone had we notched ourselves 2-0 to the good. We will park the referee chatter here then and move on to Wrexham because Josh Windas's deflected strike gave the visitors the lead on 7 minutes. Boro huffed and puffed from there on in until Hayden Hackney, of all people, headed home with 10 minutes left to play. Probably won't score many with his head, how Hayden. 1-1 it ended in front of a 30,000 crowd at the Riverside. Rob Edwards made 3 changes ahead of this game. Ian Morris, Sverre Nipan and Callie Sen in. Alan Browne, David Strelitz and Tommy Conway out. Tom, are you surprised that Conway was dropped/rotated?
No, not particularly. And, I might have been last season, but I think at the moment you've got pretty much 3 strikers throughout the squad. We've got depth in the majority of the positions, so we've got the capability to rotate. So when that team was announced yesterday, I was just like, fair enough. We're trying different players in the system. Conway and Strelick have both played the last 2 games. Maybe Callie Sen's fresh and can offer something different there. I did think out of the 2 of them, if it was going to be one that was dropped, it would be Strelick and Conway would continue playing. Just because I think he does offer the team a lot in terms of his pressing and just in his general kind of overall game playing in that 9 position. But then it's something that Sen could offer as well. So yeah, when both of them were rotated, I was like, okay, I'd have preferred to have seen Conway playing, but we've got the options, Dawn, there to to rotate. So it wasn't like a major thing for me.
Every time I see Dawn on Look North, by the way, I just laugh. I just think, you were in a press conference many years ago with Jonathan Woodgate, and he said something, and we have just memed it ever since. And now every time I see her, I do giggle to myself. Options, Dawn. Tom, yeah, were you surprised? I mean, sorry, do Boro's struggles without Tommy Conway show just how important he is to this team?
I would say yes, for the moment. I think in the case of Strelic and Sen, they are still both quite new. And you know what, I'm going to credit Johnny with a point that he's made this morning in our group chat, where he was kind of saying, look, when you go into a new job, there's always like a settling in period. You're not expected to know everything straight away, and that is the same case for football. You can't be expected to know the system and know all the intricacies of everything straight away. Conway had longer learning that under Rob Edwards than Strelic and Sen did. Probably not by too long, probably you're talking, 4 to 6 weeks or something. But then Conway's also been a part of the team for the last season as well. We know what Conway can offer. So yeah, I think he is a very important part of the team. That's reflected with his number upgrade this season as well. But that's not to say that as Strelic and Sen grow into the squad, grow into the system, they're not going to be offering similar. I would say probably Sen more than Strelic there, because Strelic doesn't seem like the type who's going to like press and chase down, but he's got other things he can offer.
Yeah, for me, I think Tommy Conway has to start for Middlesbrough more often than not. I just think that obviously strikers are judged on their goal return, and with Conway recently, he's not been as potent in front of goal as we would want him to be. He had a chance yesterday, actually, that was rather powder puff. He took the ball, I think it was with his left foot, wasn't it? Which he's not the best with his left foot, to be fair to Tommy Conway. He just didn't get any power behind it, and it was basically picked up by Nkonkwo, which is fairly indicative of the quality of shot there from Conway. But I do really like his general play. He's just a nuisance. He sets the press as well off the ball, which we didn't really see yesterday, but definitely in other games you can see it with Conway. And then I don't know, his link up play is actually really good. I've said it before that Conway, when he gets his back to goal, he just that little layoff to an advancing midfielder, I think is really important, and I want him to be in the team. I want him at start. I think he's a very important part of this side. And we saw it yesterday, just how important he is, because we lacked a lot of pace, I thought, a lot of quickness. And that doesn't just come down to one player, of course. It comes down to the whole team. But for me, Middlesbrough are probably a better side with Conway in it than Conway out of it. With Sen, impact player, which is no disrespect. I think players that start the game are just as important as players that finish the game and vice versa. So for me, Conway has to start. Alan Browne, player of the match midweek, but not involved from the start here. Do you think he should be starting for Boro, maybe in place of Aidan Morris? And the only reason I ask that is because some Boro fans have maybe said that Aidan Morris should be dropped in favour of Alan Browne. So keen to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I would say so going forward. Again, a bit like with some of the changes we made going into yesterday's game, I wasn't surprised by a lot of them, just because it's a squad game, 3-game week, and it was a much quicker turnaround from the game on Wednesday than there was the previous game on Friday to Wednesday. So, yeah, I understood a lot of the changes and why it was, a good idea to freshen up the team. And Alan Browne had played brilliantly on Wednesday, was rightfully our player of the match, and has been fantastic of late. But of course, freshen it up in midfield. Aidan Morris is not a bad player to bring in. I think because Browne's been so good, it now doesn't make Aidan Morris really, really bad. It's great to have the competition, because, we looked at Hayden and Aidan as these two incredible midfielders, which they are, potentially the best of the championship. And you think, well, in the past, we've not had any sort of deputies to the pair of them. They've been anywhere near their level, whereas now we clearly do, and that's great. So it's not a bad thing that Browne comes in for Morris. It doesn't make Morris a bad player. It doesn't, it's no disrespect to Morris. But at the minute, I think Alan Browne is in great form, and he come on yesterday, was fantastic. Second half, picked up completely from where he left off against Sheffield Wednesday, and yeah, unfortunately for Morris, his form's just not quite at it. I think he was better in the second half, as just was the whole team yesterday. I don't think it could have gotten much worse than the first half, which I know we'll get on to. But for me, I think he's clearly the midfielder in form right now. Morris has been off it. He was off it prior to the international break. I don't think he was great against Southampton, and can't recall if he was that great against Stoke either. So yeah, I understand why yesterday there was a case for freshening up in some areas, but I think we've now seen, with a week now till the next game, I think it's Hayden Hackney and Alan Browne in midfield. I think it's absolutely his shirt now.
Alan Browne seems to be flavour of the month right now, isn't he? And that's completely fine. Alan Browne is a fantastic player, brilliant again against Sheffield Wednesday, was excellent against Ipswich as well, imperious in the midfield alongside Hayden Hackney. But let's not forget that Aidan Morris is a very talented footballer as well, and I think that there's maybe some Boro fans that really quickly flick a switch with Boro's midfield too, particularly Hayden Hackney. Actually, as soon as Hayden Hackney has a bad game, all I hear is, oh, he believes his own hype, overrated. I don't agree with that whatsoever. I think Hayden Hackney is a fantastic player, as is Aidan Morris. So although Alan Browne has been fantastic recently, there's maybe room for all of them. You could switch it to a 4-3-3, although that does maybe put into question the amount of number 10s that we have and where they would play. The likes of Nipan, does he maybe become a number 8 potentially? I think there's versatility there. Hansen could probably play as a winger. Bergzorg could play as a winger, as we saw yesterday. The same with Whittaker, but quality-wise, But very good that we've got squad depth, as you said there, Matt, that is coming into the team and performing. That's all we want to see. Sticking with you then, Matt, Callum Britton said after the match that it was a game of two halves. Obvious, but we know what he means. What did you make of the first half yesterday against Wrexham?
Yeah, it was awful, really, wasn't it? It was not a great first half at all. And I think, on reflection, even though you looked at the 11 and you thought, I can see why he's maybe made a couple of changes. Bergzorg and Whittaker still in the team. I thought they looked like they were flagging a little bit on Wednesday, but they'd both been directly involved in Boro's 3 previous goals in that week. So I could understand why he picked the players he did, but I think it was the first time I looked at Boro's team during that first half and I thought, he's got this wrong. He's got this completely wrong. We played into Wrexham's hands completely. They were blocking out the central areas and we were trying to play through them, trying to force it through them, and that's exactly what they wanted. And it just wasn't working. And I think when you're taking out that they even got an early goal, I think if you want to play through a side that are going to set up so defensively as they were and so solid, you've got to move the ball a lot quicker than what we were doing. You've got to try and stretch them. You've got to try and move them around. And we just weren't doing it. When you're playing the ball sideways and backwards at snail's pace, like we were, it's just so easy for Wrexham to just sit in and just defend this, just defend their box. And we didn't trouble them whatsoever in that first half. I think the performance was really lethargic. There was no energy in the play. The passing was off as well. Even when we were playing passes, they were a couple of yards further ahead, behind. We just weren't on it all for whatever reason. And it wasn't helped by the fact that we conceded early. If we'd have gone in at 0-0, I think we could have addressed the issues and probably went on and won the game. But obviously conceding, it's a mountain to climb. And yeah, it was a difficult goal, a poor goal to concede. We don't get out quickly enough for Josh Windas's shot. I know it takes a deflection, but it sort of sums up the lack of urgency that we had in that first half, that no one got within a mile of him, and allowed him to just take that free shot at goal. And it put us in an interesting position because, we've not gone behind at home this season, I don't think. I think we went behind against Preston and Southampton. So it was interesting to see how Boro would cope at home with a team, having something to hold on to. Could we break them down? Could we get back into the game? Could we win the game? And I think, putting that test towards Boro, we failed yesterday. We've got to go back eventually, but giving them a goal that first half, we were just absolutely miles off it. So was really disappointed with that first half. It was probably one of the worst of the season, and unfortunately, it's the first time I can look at Rob Edwards and say I think he got his selection and game plan wrong.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy that game. I really didn't. This week has kind of made me question Boro a lot, I would say. I think maybe pouring a bit of cold water on us because our performances have not been great. And like Sheffield Wednesday really didn't like it. Wrexham really didn't like it, that first half in particular. Absolutely spot on, Matt. We were just incredibly poor. I woke up this morning and I think all of us kind of thought, oh, do we have to talk about that? Because it was so bad. Like, it was really poor from Boro. It kind of took a sap of energy out of me, to be honest. I'm just waiting for us to be a bit more, just be a bit quicker with the ball, be a bit more incisive. We've tried too hard to force it. And as you said there, we tried to play through them. We tried to punch it through Wrexham. And the problem was is that they had a midfield three. And I do want to credit Wrexham here because I think there'll probably be a few stray Wrexham fans listening to this. I think it's important that we do mention that there's another side on the football pitch. But they had the midfield three of Thomason, who I thought was impressive, James, and then Dobson. And they were very structurally organised. And they made it so that they just stopped or nullified the build out from the back. And Aidan Morris was basically deployed right in front of the back four. And I looked at who's in front of him, who's the option, who's the outball. You've got Hayden Hackney, who is basically outnumbered 3v1. And then you've got Neepan a little bit further forward. He could drop deep, but you're still outnumbered 3v2. So what is the outball? I'm thinking, hit it wide. That was where the space was. That was effectively, and Rob Edwards said it, they wanted to give us that space. We needed to work with what they wanted to give us, basically. So they were trying to force Boro out wide. Boro just still tried to play it forward, tried to play it centrally. And then when I'm seeing Whittaker on my side, on the east side, like going, like positioning himself in field, I'm thinking, that is not the play. Stay out wide, get chalk on your boots. Whittaker can take up a really wide starting position and then cut inside, and then he'll shoot with his left foot. But he was venturing too much into almost the half space. Well, it wasn't the half space. That was not what Boro should have done yesterday. They really shouldn't have done. Bergsog, Whittaker should have been very wide on that football pitch. Both of those should have been the outball, and they just weren't. It was just a very, very, very poor half. And the goal itself is very unfortunate because damned if you do, damned if you don't. Dale Fry tries to block it before it reaches Sol Bryn, which is something that Boro have been very good at, just basically restricting the shots on goal. And unfortunately flicks his leg out and it deceives Sol Bryn, and it's just such a pig shit goal to concede. And then, yeah, as you said, it gives us a bit of an interesting dilemma because you're then having to try to extract goodness from an attack that's just really struggled in recent weeks. In fact, the whole season, we've not been the greatest attacking creative threat. So then the onus is on us at home to try to do that and get back into the game. And in the end, Tom, well, half-time actually, he made 4 changes, Edwards. He switched the shape from a 4 at the back to a wing-back system. I do just want to keep on the first half for a second because I want to kind of get your thoughts on why do you think those changes before the game, didn't work in that first 45?
I think you just kind of summed it up there with the fact that Wrexham had packed the central areas. And you know what, like even as far back as the game on Wednesday, I was thinking about this system and I'm like, is this actually the best one for us? Because it worked really well against Ipswich, and I think it worked well because Ipswich were such an expansive side and left so many gaps. Then you look at the games against Sheffield Wednesday and Wrexham, those teams didn't do that. They were set up much more solidly in the middle, and it really negated that. And I don't want to sound like I'm, slagging off Bergsog and Whittaker because they obviously both did well in the 2 previous games. Whittaker getting his goals against Ipswich and Sheff Wed. Bergsog got an assist and an assist of an own goal, but they're not your traditional wingers, and it's a big thing for me. If you're trying to play that system and trying to play that kind of like 4-2-3-1, I think you need proper wingers to do it, or you need quicker players than Bergsog and Whittaker. Especially in the type of game that we had yesterday, where you did need to move the ball quickly. I think with both of those players, they've both got their strengths. Bergsog did really, really well against Ipswich and holding the ball up against Furlong. Whittaker's obviously done well in the last couple, but they're not your traditional wingers. They're not quick. They're not going to well, Bergsorg will beat a man, but then he'll beat him 5 more times sometimes before he does anything. But it's like like Whittaker, I've seen him kind of doing like the pass and move stuff down the right hand side. Sometimes it comes off, sometimes it doesn't. I just think in that type of situation where you're being afforded the space out wide, you need to move it quickly. I'd much rather have some proper wingers there. And looking at this squad, I'm not sure that we have that anyway. Like obviously we've got like Hansen who can come in, but I don't think we've got the personnel to play that formation in the way that we've needed to play for the last couple of games. And maybe that's why we had to change the system at halftime, go back to something that we were a little bit more comfortable in. And ultimately, it did pay off for us.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. And it's very similar with the 3 at the back as well. With the 4-2-3-1, the most important player, I think, the most important players are the wingers and then the number 10. In the wing-back system, it's the wing-backs, isn't it? And I think that in both formations, maybe we don't have the profile of player for a 4-2-3-1 with the wingers or the quality. I think we've got the profile, not the quality of the profile. And then maybe with the wing-back system, I'm yet to really see it with Callum Britton. I'm not going to lie. I'm yet to see it. I think he's solid, and that's good. That's a big positive. I don't think he's a bad player by any means. Want to see more from him in terms of the attacking phases of the game, particularly in that 3-4-2-1, because your onus with a wing-back system is on your wing-backs. If you don't have wing-backs that are attacking, this is pureless ball. Pure and simple, it's pureless ball. It's negative, it's defensive. We'll struggle. Need to see more from one of them, because if it's target that's going to be more defensive, that's fine. Then the other needs to get forward and needs to be very high up the pitch for me. So that's a big problem that I think Boro need to identify. Matt, do you think the changes improved Boro's performance level in the second half? It was bold from Rob Edwards. He said after the game, I don't think he's ever made 4 changes at half time, but he did. Yeah, do you think that improved Boro in the second half?
Yeah, well, firstly, credit to him for recognising that there was an issue and making 4 changes. I couldn't believe it. Me and Johnny were sat there at half time and we went from, we're going to make 1 change. Oh no, there's 2. Oh no, he's going to make 3. And then it wasn't until the very last minute. 4? What? We couldn't believe it. I think it's the first time I've ever seen a Boro manager do that. So, I mean, credit to Rob Edwards firstly for being just so proactive at half time, saying, right, this is not it. We need a change, not just personnel, system. So, credit him for trying. It did improve our performance level, but I mean, it had to, right? It couldn't have got worse than that first half. It literally couldn't have. If it had, God knows what that second half would have looked like. So it could have only gotten better, but it still wasn't great. I think in the end, we only generated. I think it's been updated to around 0.7 xG. And I think for the possession and the territory we had in that second half, still not enough. And I think, going back to what we were discussing about the systems, I think we've seen enough from both now, and I do wonder, like Tom said, you made a good point. I don't know if what we thought we were seeing from the 4, and I guess the pros of the 4 were inflated by the opposition. As you say, Ipswich were very open, left a lot of space. Sheffield Wednesday were just poor, and we weren't great. So I am starting to look at it now, and I am starting to think. I think we go back to a back 3, because I agree. No disrespect to Whittaker or Bergsorg, because I think they're very good in very specific moments. They have specialities within games, but I don't think they can give us enough consistently over a prolonged period of time to deliver in them positions. And who else is there, as you say? McGree. He's not going to offer us the width. He's going to want to come inside. Can we rely on him to stay fit? Hansen will probably want to come inside as well. I don't think we've got the personnel. I agree. I think you've got to go back to a 3. I think you get Luke Ayling back in the team then. I think his range of passing is amongst the best in the side. So I think getting him in the team would give us something else going forward. You then do have to put the onus on the wing backs, and I agree, we've not seen enough from them. I think in the bottom 3 for accurate crosses this season, which is not good enough for a team who might at times rely on the wing backs. So I'd go back to a 3. I'd push Target and Britton on, and I think then you've got to persist with the 10s. And all I would say is, I think at this point, Boro need to find a core of 8 players that we can probably rely on week in, week out. Yeah, flip 2 or 3 out is fine to freshen it up, but I think the front line needs continuity at this point. I think we're tinkering a bit too much. So I think the only way you're going to maybe get the best out of Strelitz and Nipan is playing with a back 3, putting them as the 10s and just giving them a run in the team, because how else are they going to get to grips with the league? How else are they going to build chemistry if they're not playing week in, week out? I get freshening it up in 3-game weeks and everything like that, but I think you've got to pick a front 3 and you've got to give them the opportunity to try and build something from here on in, because I just don't think we're going to, we're 12 games in, we're no closer to finding the right formula. And I think, how is Strelitz and the likes going to ever really find their feet if they're in, they're out, they're playing, they're not playing. So for me, yeah, go with a back 3 and pick a front 3 and roll with it. Because for me, I look at the Hansons, your Bergsog, your Whitakers. You alluded to it earlier in our group chat, D. I think they are impact players within the hierarchy of Boro's team. Strelitz and Nipan have the quality. They have to start. Give them a run of games in behind Conway, and maybe we will eventually start to see the front 3 clicking, because if we keep changing it, we're never going to get any closer to finding that, are we?
Yeah, I agree with that completely. Consistency will breed those partnerships and develop those partnerships. You can't expect Strelitz to knock up a partnership with Conway if he's dropped, and other players as well. It's very difficult to kind of enable those partnerships when you're in, you're out, you're in, you're out. On the second half, I still didn't like it. If we just pause and don't go into the data for a split second, when you're in the crowd, right, and you're watching that second half, did you think that Boro created a high quality opportunity? Because I don't think that we did. And we had 71% possession in the second half. Granted, fantastic, compact team set up from Wrexham, but 71% possession in the second half and an XG of 0.58, 9 shots on goal, 4 on target. That's not good enough. And Boro have been able to get by recently on just being, I guess, efficient. 1 goal equals a result, and to be fair, 1 goal equaled a result yesterday. But as the league starts to take shape and teams start to improve their standard, we've got Millwall breathing right down our necks right now. They're in hot form. I think they've won 4 in a row. We need to start to step up as well, and that attack needs to find a click, because if it doesn't find a click, I think Boro will fall off. Because right now, I think it's not even right now. This season so far, we've seen Boro splutter a little bit up front and in regards to creativity. It's right about now, what are we, 12 games in now, where I want to see that improve. And I think that we need to do that. I'm not being critical. I want to kind of give Boro a bit of a challenge, I guess. And I'm sure Rob Edwards will want to improve upon that attack, of course. We need to do that, because yesterday epitomised our attacking problems, basically. Tom Hackley did head home on 80 minutes to make sure Boro didn't leave the Riverside empty-handed. Were you happy with the point in the end?
No, I can't say I was. Going into the game, I had an interview for Footy Scrans before the game, and he asked me, what do you think the score is going to be today? I was like, well, I don't like to kind of give a prediction, but we're playing a team in the bottom half of the table at home. No disrespect to them, but it's the type of game you've got to be winning, especially if you've got aspirations of being in the top 2 or the playoff places at the end of the season. And I thought first half they were the better team, and I was thinking of. All the typical kind of football cliches during that game. They wanted it more, and stuff like that, and they kind of did. And yeah, I just really wasn't impressed by that performance at all. And even getting that goal at the end, it was such a contrast to the feeling I summed up on last week's pod, where I left the Ipswich game really good mood. Happy with everything, took in all the football content I could, all the Boro content I could over the next couple of days. And then with this one, I was just like, right, get out, get to the car, go home. Got home, took my Boro top off and went out did me shopping, watched the boxing last night, and by the time I went to
Riveting.
sleep, I was like, I completely forgot I was ever at the Riverside today because I wanted to put that game out of my mind so quickly. So no, I really can't say that I was happy with a point in the end, because it's a type of game, especially after seeing us beat Ipswich at home and the other home results we've had this season. I was like, I want to go in there and see us win, and I want to be confident that Boro are going to win at home this season. And yeah, going in there and seeing a performance like that point in the end still felt like a loss. So I was just like, well, I just want to forget about it. Like we said earlier, I think all of us this morning were like, do we have to talk about that? I was like, yeah, I just wanted to forget that game ever happened.
Yeah, I will say I know that maybe this last 10 minutes has been a little bit negative leaning, but the glass is still half full. We are second. We are unbeaten at home. There's still goodness within this Middlesbrough team. I love our shape and how defensively resolute that we are. Unlucky with the goal that we conceded yesterday. It is still positive, but I think that we just want to see little things improve in this Middlesbrough side. I was quite happy with the point in the end, just given the fact that I think we should have conceded a second goal. I don't know how Kiefer Moore missed it. It was his bread and butter. We were talking about bread and butter last week with George Hurst scoring penalties. That's Kiefer Moore's bread and butter, and the fact that he didn't score that, I think we're massively got away with one. But yeah, still positive. Just want to see certain things improve. Before we head to podcast questions, I just want to shout out two Boro fans, Andrew and his son George. You might have seen a video doing the rounds this week of Adilson Malander, who will join Boro in January, making a beeline to two Boro fans after Charlotte's game against Philadelphia. He was then seen signing a Boro shirt and wearing a Boro scarf. Andrew and George were the two people behind that. They're big Boro fans, originally from Mask. They're season ticket holders at Charlotte, though, and they watch the Boro games on a Saturday morning before the Charlotte games in the evening. Andrew said he told Malander the people of Middlesbrough are excited for him and that he'd be a great pairing with Dale Fry. He actually told us in the summer, Andrew, we were supposed to put this in the lowdown, so I do apologise, that he reminds him of Gary Pallister. Great with the ball at his feet, great at bringing it out, great distribution, strong in the air, and has scored a few as well. As I said a few pods ago, Middlesbrough fans, like Boro people, get absolutely everywhere. Love it. Thank you for that, Andrew. Thanks for sharing that with us. And yeah, up the Boro. And we look forward to seeing Adilson Malander in a Boro shirt. Right, podcast questions now. Let's get into what Boro fans are asking this week. Podcast questions, you know where to find us. We'll start with Jack's question. I'll give this to you, Matt. He says, are our attacking problems due to personnel? None of our wingers or attacking midfielders have played well so far this season. We kind of touched upon that later, but yeah, we want to get your thoughts on it now.
Yeah, I don't think I think we've got good personnel. I think we've got good quality players in that forward line. It's just a case of trying to find the right formula. And we have jumped from a 4 to a 5. It's been an interesting conundrum, to be honest, because as I think I said a couple of pods back, the rumours at the start of the season where we were going to stick with a 4, and then we went to a 5, and then we've like slowly went to a 4 over time. And Edwards has even mentioned that in press conferences. But yeah, for me, I think you've got to get the best out of the players you've got. And as we've said, I think with what we want to do, how we want to play, I think trying to expect and shoehorn Whittaker and Bergzog into a 4-2-3-1 every week and expecting it to work is just not going to happen. So I think looking at the options we've got, I think you've got to play with a 3-4-2-1, and you've got to just give some of them attacking players that we've brought in a chance to find their feet. Equally, as we've said, they're new to the league and they will take time to adjust. It's the same with Sen, it's the same with Strelets and Nipan as well. Let's not forget, we got him from City, but he'd come straight from Rosenborg at this point. So they're all still learning. The only way they're going to learn is if they play games and play minutes. So yeah, I don't think it's down to personnel as such. I think it's a case of we just need to find the right system and we need to just play them week in, week out. And, I do think we need to persist. I think maybe a lack of patience is a hindrance, maybe because they're not delivering straight away. We'll get them out the team, right? We need to change up. We need to do something different. I think we're at a point now where we've tried a bit of everything and we need to just pick a direction and roll with it. and give them time to find their feet. Because I'm more than sure if Strelets does, Nipan does, in behind Conway, I can absolutely see that working, given time. So that's what I would like to do. Less tinkering, and trust a group of players going forward and in the midfield, and just roll with it.
Yeah, completely agree. Next question from Lee. He says, where's the high press gone from early Rob Edwards games? Why are we reverting back to slow, narrow, predictable carrick ball? I want to touch on the high press for a second. I think we maybe saw it a little bit against Swansea opening game of the season, but to be brutally honest, you cannot play a high press with Bergzorg and Whittaker in your front line. You just can't. I did an article with Sam from Argyle Life last week. He said, we was just talking about Whittaker and what he was like for Argyle, and just seems like it's a part of Whittaker's game to be more in tune with the attacking phases than the defensive phases, and therefore I just don't think he's going to offer you a lot off the ball. And we actually flagged that on the pod as Rob Edwards was being, as he was announced, and we were reacting to it, that we can't really foresee us playing with such aggressive attacking high press, with the personnel that we've got. That's a player profile issue for me. Whittaker and Bergzorg aren't the type of players that are going to really push upon and apply pressure on a full-back or a wide centre-back. In fairness, both of them started in that opening game against Swansea, but they're not going to sustain high press. It's not within their natural game to do that, and that's absolutely fine. It's not a criticism whatsoever. That's just their playing profile. It's just their playing style. What I've seen from Borough's press is that it comes from the middle. It comes from Conway up front. He's a nuisance. He presses and he chases, but it comes from Morris. He tries to hit the heart of the press from the middle. You can often see him just pelting forward to try and get that ball, try to apply pressure and get the first contact on it. So that's where the press comes from. I just don't think that we can play a high press game with the players that we've got, and maybe Rob Edwards has kind of understood that and tweaked it a little bit. Why we're reverting back to slow and narrow, predictable carrot ball? Listen, I think that's on the players. Rob Edwards did come out and take ownership of the changes, but the players have to take ownership as well, because they were too slow and pedestrian yesterday. It just takes a little give and go just to inflict a little bit of pace into the game. And yeah, they need to identify where the spaces are during the game. They're professional footballers. They don't need me to tell them that, but they needed to take ownership of that game and responsibility, and somebody within that Middlesbrough team on the pitch yesterday needed to kind of take the game by the scruff of the neck and just initiate some phase of play that did inject what we were missing in that first 45 in particular. Although I will say again, I wasn't pleased still with the second half performance. It was better than the first half, but really, it feels like a little bit of a backhanded compliment, to be honest, because how much better is better than bad? Because the first half was bad and the second half I don't think was we weren't great shakes either. Tom, our Johnny Bullock, who will be back next week, asks, Edwards has been complimented about making a number of changes in personnel and shape early and often in his Boro tenure. Given its consistency, is this good management or poor planning?
I would say possibly a bit of both. The reason I'm saying that is, there were a lot of times in the last couple of years where things weren't going well for us at halftime, but we still wouldn't get a sub until after the 60th minute usually, and it would usually come after the other team had made theirs and be kind of quite reactive to it. So it's good now that we've got a manager, head coach, and a coaching staff who are going to recognise that and make the subs when they're needed. In terms of it being poor planning, I'm not necessarily sure I'd agree and call it poor. But what I would say, and I think this is the case, and again, just kind of speculating here, but I think it's the case that Edwards and the coaching staff are just trying to kind of the changes that we're seeing at the moment are all aimed at solving different problems, and I don't think we're set on one type of system, lineup, formation, all those different factors. The change to a 4-2-3-1 against Ipswich, I think after the international break. I think we were trying to work on that to address our problems in terms of creativity. But then you've seen that in the last couple of games, that hasn't necessarily worked out the way that we would necessarily want it to. So then it's, we go back to 5 at the back at half-time yesterday and eventually get the goal from that. If we go back to that formation, we might kind of go back to, being solid, but then not creating enough going forward. So then we might need to try something else. I think we've been 4-3-3 a couple of times this season. Maybe that'll be like the next experiment. But I mean, I think it's a really good problem to have, where we're 12 games into the season, we're sitting second and we're having these conversations saying we're not playing our best, we haven't clicked yet and stuff. Because if we're sitting second despite never really playing our best, then that can only be a positive. But, we've talked on previous pods about certain things clicking and waiting for that to happen and stuff like that. And I don't think we're set, and I don't think we've decided or seen enough to just, pick a certain direction going forward. And that's leading to the questions like the last one regarding like the high press. Tried it for a few games, but then that's slowly kind of faded away because we're trying to address different issues. So I think it's shown that the coaching staff is knowledgeable and like really in tune with what's going on, but then they are also trying to find the answers, and we just don't have the answers yet. And that's just my opinion on it.
Yeah, final question from Dave. I'll ask both of you on this. I'll start with you, Matt. He asks, is it time to begin introducing Riley McGree into the team?
Yeah, why not? Why not? We've tried everything else. And I was looking at what my best 11 would be. Like, what would I do? And I went with a back three. And as I said, it gets Ayling into the team, and hopefully you get more at the wing backs. But then I think the midfield too, we've got great options there, whichever duo we go with. I think the question is, what do we do behind Tommy Conway, who I think we've seen is definitely be the starter. And I think you start Strelitz because of his quality, Nipan probably as well. But then I'm like, yeah, Riley McGree as a 10 in behind the striker. Why the hell not? We've seen how good he is. He can pick a pass. He's great in tight areas. He's good on the ball. And he does possess quality. So I would rather see McGree in a number 10 behind a striker in a 3-4-2-1 than probably in a 4-2-3 on the left, because as we've said, it doesn't give us the width that we probably need. So I would be more than willing to see Riley McGree given a spot with the 10 in behind, Tommy Conway in a 3-4-2-1 and see how it works. For all we know, it could be exactly what we need. It could give us that little bit of quality and incisiveness in the top of the pitch that could unlock the door and really help us. It's then, of course, a question of, can he stay fit? And if he does start playing well, can we keep him there? That's another question. But, with a player like Riley McGree in the squad, I think you've absolutely got to try and get him in there, because it's not lost on me how good of a player he is, just because he's had a ton of injury problems. So, yeah, while we're still trying to find the formula up front, why not? Why not give him a go?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. As Matt just said, we're still trying to find the formula. I think the coaching staff are still trying to solve different issues and decide on a way to go. So why not try McGree? It was only a couple of seasons ago where, and in hindsight, I can kind of see why, but there was the questions of why are we leaving arguably the best player in our team on the bench. I think that was at the start of the season where we had like Rodgers and that. But yeah, we all know the quality that Riley McGree has got. If you can get him back to form, he's an absolute asset to that team. We just haven't seen that in so long. So it'll be a bit of a challenge for him to get back up to that form, but we know he can do it. We know he can be a good provider in this team. So yeah, I'd quite like to see him get a chance to come back.
I'd just like to see him again because I think he's a wonderful footballer. I mean, it's it's such a shame, isn't it, that a footballer as technically gifted as Riley McGree is so injury prone. Yeah, it's taken a long time for Riley McGree to be back in the fold. He's had so many setbacks, and as I said, it's a massive shame that somebody so technically gifted that we know can work really well and absolutely intelligent footballer has been completely almost consumed by injuries. It's a massive shame. I think if he does come back and he has been reintroduced to the match day fold now, he's I think he's been fit for a decent amount of time, but it's just about managing the injury so he doesn't have another setback. It's good to see that he is available again. I just hope that when he does come back, we give him patience because yeah, his body has let him down recently, and some of the narratives around him that he only comes back for international duty, I think is just so unfair. Because as a professional footballer, the one thing that you don't want to be is injured. You don't want to not be able to play the sport that you love. And so I think, yeah, the narratives around McGree have been pretty difficult to read. But I'm hoping that he could be back soon. He could be a very important part of this team. And to be fair, it'll be interesting to see how he fits because we saw him when he first came to Middlesbrough as the number 8 behind Marcus Tavernier. God bless Tav, still miss him. And then as the left winger, unorthodox left winger that almost became an off-centre number 10. So he's not actually, he's played a couple of games as the kind of sure number 10 in the middle of the park from the off, but it's going to be interesting to see, is he that number 10, the 2 behind Conway? Is he potentially a number 8? Who knows? But he's a very technically gifted and intelligent footballer. I think he could probably play both roles. One final note before we wrap up this episode. A big well done to Boro women who defeated Cheadle Stingers 4-0 on Saturday, live on the telly no less. A very historic game, the first broadcasted game of Middlesbrough women. Goals from Ferguson, Watt, Robson and Nelson earned them a place in the next round of the Women's FA Cup. Big congratulations to everybody involved there. We will wrap things up now then. If you've enjoyed this episode, please make sure to give it a like if you're watching on YouTube. If you do enjoy the podcast and haven't subscribed to us, please do that. Same on the podcast platforms as well. We will be back in your ears maybe at the start of next week for a Watford opposition preview show, but if not, we will be back in your ears next Sunday to review the week. Until then, take care and up the Boro Breakdown.